Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. Now, I do want to make one point relating to yesterday's video when I talked about Kamala Harris, and I suggested that it would be a really good idea if Joe Biden disappears from the political scene before his birthday. His birthday is November the 20th. And so, on his birthday, there's a new solar return. And I took the view that this solar return is so disastrous, given in the light of previous horoscopes, the horoscope for his inauguration, for his own horoscope, and for the horoscope of the USA. You have a kind of a run of charts, and I was really concerned about this solar return chart, and I really argued that anyone would be a better president, a less dangerous president than Joe Biden. But I did get a comment about this. The comment was like this, and it basically asked me, well, we know that Joe Biden is not particularly with it. He's sort of cognitively impaired. So does it really matter? If other people are making the decisions, why does it matter whether or not he's president? Well, my answer to that question is, this is an astrology channel, and so we look at things astrologically. We look at things in a sort of a symbolic way. Even though Joe Biden is cognitively impaired, even though it's, other people are almost certainly making the vast majority of the decisions, nonetheless, he is President of the United States. This is an important symbolic, almost spiritual role. He represents the country, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how with it he actually is. So it's like the medieval concept of kingship. The king is the country, and the country is the king. So if things are going well with the king, then things go well with the country, and vice versa. When things go badly with the king, then things go badly with the country. This point was made in that Arthurian film Excalibur, when Arthur asked Merlin, I think, what is it to be king, or words to that effect. He asked that kind of question, and this was kind of Merlin's reply. The king and the country are intimately associated, and so if you can see that things are going badly with the king, then things are going to go badly with the country, and I think that is why it's so important that Joe Biden sort of exits his role before his birthday. Okay, it may be nothing. It may be that that bad solar return chart that comes into force in his birthday in November just simply affects him, but it could affect America, and it could affect the world. Particularly if the Ukraine war is still going on, then, and particularly if America feels it has to do something dramatic to turn the tide. So I did want to make that point. So as far as what I wanted to talk about today, or if you like, my topic for today is Imran Khan, who used to be the Prime Minister of Pakistan. There are a number of issues with his chart, which I will be talking about, and I'll also be talking about the background, the background to why he's, to how he's no longer Prime Minister. So I'll be covering that. But before I look at Imran Khan, I want to consider the astrology for today, which is Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. So let's look at the astrology for today. That is Imran Khan's chart. So let's look at today's horoscope. So today the moon is in Aquarius. It continues to be in Aquarius. So if you're in Australia, New Zealand, East Asia, yesterday the moon really wasn't in Aquarius for you. It still had very much a Capricorn feel. So if now you're really feeling Aquarius, the moon in Aquarius, the full impact of the moon in Aquarius. So with the moon in Aquarius, it's supposedly quite detached. I think some of us are going to want to be detached from other people and deeper feelings, that kind of thing. We want to perhaps focus on the head rather than the heart. But that might be difficult, because you will see that today the moon in Aquarius is opposition Venus in Leo. We've got two fixed signs, Aquarius and Leo, moon opposition Venus. And I mean, this might mean that relationships are difficult to avoid. And we've got these two female planets. Moon is a female planet. Venus is a female planet. So there could be in relationships something of a deadlock. Not anything violent, but just a feeling that emotionally we're at odds with the other person. So that could be difficult. In perhaps in any relationship, you've got a situation where one person is overly detached and the other person is overly emotional. And it's difficult to resolve that. So perhaps you need to ask, which one are you? Are you the detached person, or are you the over-emotional one? To get into further detail, you can actually see there's a T-square here, because you've got moon opposition. You've got moon opposition Venus. Then you've got Jupiter. Then you've got Jupiter on a T. So Venus is kind of square Jupiter, and the moon is squaring. The moon is squaring Jupiter. So maybe Jupiter represents some kind of resolution. So if you're involved in a relationship and you feel that you and your partner, and I'm not just talking about romance, could be a business relationship, whatever, friendship. If you feel that there's a deadlock, you feel that you're just not getting anywhere, that you've got different priorities, Jupiter may actually represent the key. You perhaps need to stop thinking about the relationship itself, and you and the other person maybe need to take a step back and focus on an activity which takes the focus away from you and the other person. An expansive activity. Jupiter in Taurus, getting involved in a joint project which may be focused on other people, not just you and your partner. So there is a possibility there. Now, as far as the most dangerous time of the day is concerned, I would have said the most dangerous time of the day is when that moon Jupiter square is exact. Reason being, you'll see that there is a sesquiquadrate between Mars and Jupiter. It's breaking up, this sesquiquadrate, but the moon is bringing it back into focus, because what happens is that London time at 1611 there's a moon square Jupiter, And then at 17:30, sorry, 4:11 p.m. London time. I know 24-hour clock isn't intuitive for everyone. At 4:11 p.m. there's a square between the Moon and Jupiter, and at 5:31 p.m. There's a sesquiquadrate between the Moon and Mars. So that's London time. So that would mean that if you're in the Americas, well, if you're in New York, that's going to be sort of mid-morning, 9, 8 or 9 in the morning. If you're in the West Coast, it's going to be much earlier, 3 hours earlier. So you're probably going to miss this. So I don't think anything bad's going to happen to you while you're still in bed. Of course, maybe you get up early, but anyway. But if you're in Australasia, East Asia, then it's going to be the next day. So just bear that in mind. And if you're in Europe, probably Western Europe, late afternoon is probably going to be quite a difficult time, and there's going to be a lot of stress, a lot of anger. So watch out for that. Now, another thing going on is that Uranus, the planet Uranus, is coming to a standstill. So Uranus has been trundling through the sky, going through Taurus, and then we suddenly see that it goes retrograde from the Earth's perspective. So obviously from the Sun's perspective, Uranus never goes retrograde, but from the Earth's perspective, it now seems that Uranus is coming to a standstill, and it's starting to go backwards. I think we've already seen this in the case of Donald Trump. Just to quickly show you what I mean. You see, Uranus is is going retrograde at around 2305 Taurus. So there was an astrologer. I read his book I forget what the book was called. I know his name. I think it was Stephen Arroyo. I read his book in the 1980s, and he talked about retrograde planets. And I've told you this before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But a retrograde planet, or rather a planet that goes stationary. So planets will slow down and they will stop, and Uranus has stopped. So Stephen Arroyo equated this to putting your finger through a candle flame. So you put your finger through a candle flame, and of course if your finger is moving, your finger can go right through the flame and it won't hurt. But a planet coming to going stationary retrograde or stationary direct, it's like the finger stops in the middle of the flame and it hurts. And so if you have anything around anything in your horoscope around 23 Taurus, you may really feel it. So just to show you what I mean with Donald Trump's chart. So here's Donald Trump's chart, and you can see that his midheaven is at 24 Taurus. And just a few days ago, he got arrested, he got arrested, and we got the mugshot and all of that kind of stuff. And so Uranus was coming to a standstill right on Donald Trump's midheaven. How he comes over in the public eye, this is clearly going to have a big impact, for better or for worse, on his political prospects, aside from whether or not he goes to jail or whatever. So I think we saw that Uranus stationing on Donald Trump's midheaven. We've already started to see that, and so with Uranus. This stationing Uranus, I think, is quite important. We might see today and tomorrow. I think we've already seen it. we're seeing drama. That's what it would be, because Uranus has come to a standstill. Um, the the revolution has been frozen, but it's not. And so that disruptive energy is frozen, and it's like the finger in the candle flame. You want to get that finger out of the candle flame as soon as possible, but soon enough, Uranus will gather speed. It will start going backwards, and that particular thing will start to break up. So those are the main themes for today. And now I want to do my star sign forecasts. So let's get going. These are my forecasts for today, which is Tuesday, August the 29th, 2023. Aries, enjoyment and creativity shouldn't be matters of argument, but today agreement may be hard to find. You meet up with friends, you want to do one thing, they want to do something else. Elsewhere, you start to realize that one aspect of your financial life is completely chaotic and needs to be sorted out. Taurus, of course, the world is in a permanent process of change and there is not much you can do about it. But today, the change all around you feels personal and you want to take control of it. And yes, you are in a position to make a valuable contribution to this change. You just have to trust yourself to be a rebel, but a rebel with a cause. Gemini, it's all very well having big ideas, but you also need to consider other people. They might not know what you're talking about, and you may regard them as being strangely stuck in their ways. So you need to make a special effort to listen and not to cause shock just for the sake of it. Things really, they're unstable enough as it is without you making it worse. Cancer. Today there is an opposition between the Moon and Venus across the finance axis of your solar chart. In certain situations, this can represent a financial gain, but it's more likely to be a loss caused by a lack of attention on your part. Spending on things that you don't really need. In terms of food and drink, don't overindulge yourself. Leo, the planet Uranus is coming to a standstill in an elevated sector of your solar chart. If you're working today, there could be a certain amount of instability and you may have to change your plans and schedules at short notice. You also need to consider other people's needs, even if you think that it's quite unnecessary. Virgo, today it's important you're busy. Not just because there's work to do, but also because if you're not engaged in useful activity, your mind could wander into areas that aren't very helpful. Fantasy, speculation, and muddy emotions. At the same time, something you thought was true is turning out to be false. Libra, selfishness is a bad strategy, at least today it is. If you just do your own thing without concern for other people, you'll be generating bad publicity for yourself. However, if you're accommodating within reason, your flexibility will be much appreciated. A bit of understanding goes a long way. Scorpio, people's minds are starting to change and they are approaching the world in a new way. There's a danger that you get left behind, so you need to work out what is going on and be ready to adjust to the new reality. At work, there may be one particular person who you don't get on with, and it's a difference that needs to be accepted rather than resolved. Sagittarius, just when you think you know the answer, the ground moves from under your feet. So you need to accept a certain amount of ambiguity and admit that you don't know everything. From a health perspective, watch how you go and don't shout and don't talk too much. Too much drama could undermine your well-being. Capricorn. It's difficult to make firm plans because every now and then they get changed. People say one thing, even promise one thing, and the reality is completely different. Be especially wary of promises relating to money. Activities that you normally enjoy could create some surprises, and it may be necessary to take a break from them. Aquarius. Relationships are going to be hard work because there is an opposition aspect between the Moon and Venus across the main axis of your solar chart. On one hand, you have your own way of doing things. On the other hand, there are people close to you clamouring for your attention. Somehow you have to balance the interests of self and other. Pisces. You're feeling somewhat agitated. Perhaps you feel that you can't take meaningful action. But consider the possibility that now is not the time for taking the initiative. You don't have all the facts, and your emotions might get in the way of common sense. Travelling should probably be avoided. So I now want to switch to the I Ching. As always, I threw 3 coins in the air, and I asked the question, what is Tuesday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? So I got a single hexagram. It didn't move. And I got hexagram 27, the corners of the mouth. That makes sense if you look at this hexagram. You know, you've got an unbroken line at the top, unbroken line at the bottom, and so you've kind of got a mouth there. So what does that mean? Well, for many of us today, food and nourishment could be an issue. So we do have to be careful that we don't overindulge ourselves, and that kind of fits with the fact that there is an opposition aspect between the Moon and Venus. Moon and Venus can be overindulgent. It can relate perhaps to comfort eating. It may make us feel happy to eat. We might just sort of eat without really thinking about what we're doing and then later regret it. So we do need to watch that. We need to perhaps watch for sort of expenditure on food, going to restaurants. Is it really necessary? So yeah, that's one aspect of this. But I think there's a more important aspect of this hexagram 27, the corners of the mouth. It's about the way we deal with other people. And what the I Ching says is that we need to ask ourselves, what nourishes people? Because if we know what nourishes them, we can get a better idea about whether or not we can trust them. Some people are nourished, I don't know, by sort of ideas. Other people are nourished by money. Other people are nourished, well, they could be nourished by food. What's really important to people? Why are people doing what they're doing? What are they looking for? What do they feed on? I suppose they could also be some kind of Star Trek monster, that, I don't know, wasn't there an episode in Star Trek where there was some monster that would remove all the salt from people's bodies and kill them instantly? In that case, that monster was nourished by the salt in people's bodies. But so consider what people feed on. And once you know what someone feeds on, you're in a position to know whether or not you can trust them. And really, that hexagram number 27, is as simple as that. So let's go back to the astrology, and today I wanted to talk about Imran Khan. And there are some issues with Imran Khan. One of the commenters on my website, asked me to look at his chart, and there has been a lot going on with Imran Khan. He was Prime Minister of Pakistan. Obviously, before that, he was a famous cricketer. I suppose he's still a famous cricketer in a way. So, of course, there's the issue of his time of birth, and that's a problem. So looking at his chart, here's his chart. So he was born on October the 5th, 1952 in Lahore in Pakistan. And if you go to the astro.com databank page, it says that it gives his rating an X. That means we don't know his time of birth. Yet, if you search his you search Imran Khan horoscope, you Google that, you're going to get lots of people interpreting his chart with times of birth. And the astro.com databank doesn't have full knowledge of everyone's details, although it does suggest that there are some astrologers in Pakistan suggesting something like 11:45 a.m. as a time of birth. Okay, maybe they know that. So I was thinking, okay, let's consider an 11:45 time of birth. But then I found that there's one group of astrologers who were using 11:45 as his time of birth, another group who were using 6:45 as a time of birth. So he might have been born at 11:45, or he could have been born at 6:45, or he could have been born at some other time. Now, I would love to have set up Imran Khan's horoscope with a time of birth, because it would mean that I could do so much more with it. I could look at his Vedic chart. I could look at his the Vedic time periods, but I can't, because it's very nice. We want, we as astrologers, we really want a time of birth, but we mustn't force it. If we don't have a clear time of birth, we should accept that, and just accept that there are limits to what we can do with the horoscope. Okay, we can rectify the chart. Rectifying a chart is something astrologers do when they try to reverse engineer it. I mean, in theory, that should be okay, because if it's true that you can predict events from a horoscope, a timed horoscope, then you should be able to look at events in someone's life and work out the timed horoscope on the basis of those events. And that's what some astrologers try to do, rectification. But it's hard work rectifying a chart. And even then, there are no guarantees you've got it right. And worse still, there's a danger of embarrassment. What if the true time of birth were to come out at some stage and you'd been spending ages on one particular time of birth? Now, if I had used the 11:45 time of birth, I'm guessing that some astrologers who believed in the 6:45, who went for the 6:45 thing, would say, hey, what are you doing? You're using the wrong time. And vice versa. If I'd gone for 6:45, then the 11:45 lot would have gone for me. So, in looking at Imran Khan's chart, I am going to go for noon, and I'm just going to say we don't know his time of birth. As far as what is going on in Imran Khan's chart, and to give some context to it, he was Prime Minister. He became Pakistani Prime Minister in 2018, and he ceased to become Prime Minister in April 2022. So the circumstances in which he ceased to become prime minister are important. So let me just show you an article which just to briefly give you some idea about what might be going on here. So here we are. Here is an article which by the website is the Intercept. So there's Imran Khan. Secret Pakistan cable documents US pressure to remove Imran Khan. All will be forgiven, said a US diplomat, if a no confidence vote against Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan succeeds. And it says the US State Department encouraged the Pakistani government in a March 7, 2022 meeting to remove Imran Khan as Prime Minister over his neutrality on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, according to a classified Pakistani government document obtained by the Intercept. So that seems to be what has happened. Basically, Imran Khan was removed by the United States or through American pressure. Now, being a Pakistani prime minister it's a dangerous job. Okay, you might survive your prime ministership, but soon after, bad things can happen. Benazir Bhutto who was Pakistani prime minister. She was assassinated soon after she left office. Her father, I think, was a Pakistani prime minister. He was removed from office, and after that he was hanged. Then there was another Pakistani politician, the 80s, Zia al-Haq. He wasn't prime minister, I think he was president, but he was killed in a plane crash in suspicious circumstances. So getting involved in Pakistani politics is a really dangerous job. And so Imran Khan, having been removed from office as a result of American pressure, he's in a very dangerous position. So if he one of his predecessors has been assassinated, another has been hanged. So yeah, it's dangerous. It is dangerous. So going back to his chart, he is a Libran. It kind of makes sense, him being a Libran. He wants to be neutral. Pakistan had traditionally been an American ally, but the world has become more complicated than that, and I think that he wanted to. He wanted to be friends of everyone. I think that was his philosophy, not friends of everyone, but he didn't feel, being a Libra, he wanted to sort of take advantage of a relationship with Russia. I'm not sure Pakistan has much oil of its own, so taking advantage, for example, of a pipeline providing oil, liquefied natural gas, and so forth. That would potentially be in Pakistan's economic interest, in taking advantage of the war in Ukraine to assert its neutrality. But clearly, that was not to the United States' liking, and that seems to be why he was eased out of office. So as far as his chart is concerned, he is, the cricketer side of things. I'm not into cricket, so I would, what makes him a brilliant cricketer? Well, I don't have a time of birth. I know some people will say there is a time of birth. I'd probably be inclined to, think about that Mercury and Saturn. There is a certain precision in cricket. You've got to sort of. You've got to be very focused. You've got to hit the ball. You've got to catch the ball. You've got to be. It's very, very precise, and maybe that Mercury Saturn has something to do with it. But as I said, we don't have a time of birth. He has Mercury square Uranus. Saturn square Uranus. And someone else had Saturn square Uranus. And what's interesting about Imran Khan is, okay, he's born on October the 5th, 1952, and he's trying to be friends with Russia, which seems to be a reasonable thing to do. Now, who was born on October the 7th, 1952? Well, in fact, Vladimir Putin was born on October the 7th, 1952, only 2 days apart. And so their planets are going to be fairly similar to each other. We don't know whether Putin has his moon in Gemini or Taurus. It's probably that Putin has the moon in Gemini, not Taurus. But aside from the moon, their planets are all going to be in the same signs. And I would have thought the two men should actually get on with each other very well. And he was, after the Russian invasion, I think Imran Khan went to Moscow pretty quickly. Maybe that wasn't to America's liking, or maybe there's an astrologer in the State Department, and they didn't like the fact that Putin, they thought it was of concern that Imran Khan and Vladimir Putin were so clearly aligned astrologically. Maybe, who knows? I'm sure the State Department doesn't use don't use astrologers. And what about Imran Khan and the United States? Do they have any issues there? So I thought it might be interesting to quickly look at. So there is the United States chart in the middle. There is Imran Khan's chart on the outer wheel. So they do have something in common. They both have Saturn in Libra. And quite close. I mean, their Saturns are about 2.5 degrees apart. So when you've got that, I think there's a real connection between Imran Khan and Saturn. So Saturn is about restriction. So for Imran Khan, he has Saturn conjunct his Sun. He has it conjunct his Mercury. So that might be about discipline, about control. Clearly, if you're going to be a cricketer, or any sportsman, you're going to have to be very disciplined. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to, make sure you get it right. But Saturn can also be a problem. It can restrict you. It can restrict your freedom of movement. And indeed, it can sometimes prove to be your undoing. So the United States, with its Saturn hitting his Saturn and hitting his Sun, the United States was a real problem for him. And I think he was a real problem for the United States. The United States has the Saturn square its Sun in Cancer. That's always there. America trying to be in control. It wants to be in control. It wants to be in control not just of itself, it wants to be in control of countries around the world. And as we know, since the Second World War, the United States has really been into regime change. And so here, this Imran Khan having Saturn on the America's Saturn, it's not surprising, perhaps, that the United States wanted to get rid of him. Also, Imran Khan's Mars is at 25 Sagittarius, and the United States Mars is at 21 Gemini. So they have Mars opposition Mars. So he does not really get on with the United States as a country fundamentally. And I know he had been Prime Minister for a few years before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but that was the invasion which really brought it all to a head. Another thing to consider is the Biden regime. I think he might have had real problems with the Biden regime. So here is the reminder. This is the inauguration chart of Joe Biden. 6 Mars, Uranus conjunction at 6 Taurus. Going to Imran Khan's chart, he has the moon. Well, at noon he had the moon at at around 6 Taurus. If those astrologers are right, and he was born at 11:45, then yes, he will have his moon at 6 Taurus, and so we would then see that the Biden inauguration chart's Mars-Uranus conjunction is on his moon. So it's not surprising that the Biden regime wanted to get rid of him. The Biden regime stirred things up and created a situation through its pressure where he was no longer prime minister. Looking at the solar return, here's Imran Khan's solar return chart set for October the 5th, 2021. This is his birthday just before the invasion of the Ukraine, and you can see the problems he was having. You can see there's his sun and it's conjunct Mars. So having a sun conjunct Mars in a solar return can suggest that the year ahead is going to be quite turbulent, and indeed it was. So he lost the prime ministership, and suddenly his liberty was at stake, and there's a danger that he might go the way of Benazir Bhutto and her father. That Mars, by the way, at 13 Libra, is square the United States Sun. That Sun conjunct Mars is square the United States the United States Sun, because the Sun in the United States has its Sun at 13 Cancer, square his Sun. That's another reason why they don't get on. And that solar return on October the 5th really spelt the end of his premiership. And yeah, he made an enemy with America, and I think that's kind of shown in that solar return. Finally, his solar arc directions. These are his solar arc directions. I set them for now. His solar arc directed Sun-Saturn conjunction is what I wanted to look at. So you've got Imran Khan's chart in the middle. You've got his directed, there's his Sun-Saturn conjunction. Remember, we're moving all of these planets 1 degree every year, and now he's around 70 years old, so we move these planets 70 degrees. So if we move the Sun-Uranus conjunction 70 degrees, it comes up here. So a couple of years ago, just before the invasion of Ukraine, Saturn was on his Mars, and now he's got the Sun-Saturn midpoint. The midpoint between directed Sun and directed Saturn is again on his Mars. So it's not surprising that times are difficult for him. It's not surprising that he is really got a lot of problems. But of course he's not. He may be down, but he's not out. Maybe in another video I will look at his prospects. But I don't have a time of birth that I trust. If you believe that there really is a time of birth for Imran Khan, I'm sorry, but I have to use a time that I really believe in, where there is a source. And if there's not a source, I just have to assume we don't have a time of birth for him. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say on Imran Khan. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.